"You're not just up against humans." Sergeant Kaysen remembered his commander's words as he watched his platoon touch down on the blue planet. "You're up against the Deathworld itself." For the Luther Collective, who had crushed opposition across 1,000 worlds, Earth was just another conquest. Briefings had painted a picture of a primitive species with thinly scattered defenses and inferior technology. This was supposed to be straightforward, but the moment their dropships tore through the atmosphere, something had felt wrong. On the ground, the humans' technology wasn't even close to the Collective's level, yet they fought like they had nothing left to lose. Skirmishes flared around the landing zone as soon as the Luther forces set foot on Earth. The ground shuddered as explosions erupted in tight bursts, as if the soil itself were lying in wait. Crone led his squad onward, their scanners tracking every human movement. The landscape shifted from urban sprawl to thick, tangled forest, yet every step forward felt like a carefully laid trap. Trees swayed in strange, unnatural rhythms, obscuring their sight lines, while the ground, though solid, seemed almost aware of their every move. "Sergeant," Lieutenant Marash's voice broke in over the comms, low and uneasy. "Our readings, something's off. We're barely seeing humans, yet these traps, it can't just be them. Doesn't matter what's behind it." Crone replied sharply, scanning the twisted treeline. He knew the sound of fear creeping into a soldier's tone, and Marash was slipping under the pressure. Moving on, the squad tread carefully, their boots crunching through leaves and debris. Human resistance was suspiciously light, almost too light. Ambushes sprung up, always catching them off guard, attacking from unexpected angles. Crone crouched down behind a rock, raising his hand to signal his team. The air had become stiflingly heavy, thick with tension. "Contact, left," a soldier shouted, but the ground beneath two of the Luther soldiers erupted, hurling them into the trees. Small, sharp hums filled the air as human drones zipped through the forest, weaving around branches with unnerving precision. "Fire! Take them down!" Kaysen barked, aiming into the trees, but the drones darted away too fast. One by one, they picked off Luther soldiers, ripping through their armor before vanishing back into the dense canopy. "They're not fighting like normal humans. It's like their weapons are." Marash started, but a thunderous crack cut him off as a colossal tree collapsed, crashing into their rear guard. Screams rang out as soldiers scrambled, but more hidden traps detonated, explosives buried deep in the earth itself. Through his comm unit static, Crone heard the command center's frantic call. "All units, fall back. Resistance heavier than expected. Regroup at LZ Theta." Crone's jaw clenched. Retreat wasn't a word he liked, but as he looked around at the scattered remains of his squad, he understood. They weren't being outgunned. They were being outmaneuvered by a world that refused to be conquered. "Move! Head back to the landing zone," he barked. With each step, Kaysen felt tremors growing stronger underfoot, as if the earth itself was pushing them away. The squad burst out from the forest's edge, sprinting across the open field that lay between them and the landing zone. But as they neared safety, a deep roar erupted, and the ground split wide open. A massive fissure tore through the field, swallowing soldiers as they stumbled and fell into the gaping chasm. Kaysen skidded to a stop at the edge, staring in disbelief. This wasn't a battlefield, it was something far more terrifying. They hadn't simply invaded another planet. They had awakened a force beyond their understanding, and it was furious. At the landing zone, chaos reigned. Luther soldiers scrambled, their once orderly formation shattered. The sleek dropships stood starkly against the backdrop of Earth's crude defenses, yet that didn't matter now. Earth itself had turned into their enemy. Sergeant Kaysen, "What the hell is going on?" barked a gruff voice over the comms as Crone and his surviving squad members staggered into the landing zone. "It's not just the humans," Crone said, panting. "The ground, the trees, everything is against us. This one giant trap." Captain Vec stepped forward, scanning the horizon. "Are you saying this planet is?" "I'm saying the humans have weaponized their environment." Kaysen cut him off. "Wherever we go, the terrain shifts against us. It's unnatural." Vec's face tightened. "Impossible. No species can control an entire planet like that." Marash, barely making it back and wincing from a shrapnel wound, muttered, "I wouldn't be so sure, Captain. The drones, the traps, it's too synchronized. Almost as if the planet itself is alive." Vec paused, eyes narrowing as he watched the tree lean in the distance, where faint, rhythmic tremors shook the earth. Suddenly, the ground quaked again, harder this time, as though the very core of the planet was reacting to their presence. Crone Crone tightened his grip on his rifle. "Captain, we need to evacuate immediately. This isn't a battle we can win." Before Vec could respond, a series of explosions thundered around the LZ's perimeter. Human forces had closed in, darting through shadows with speed and agility that took even these seasoned soldiers by surprise. Despite their light armor and simple weaponry compared to the Luthers, they fought with a terrifying intensity. "They're using the terrain to stay hidden," a soldier yelled as plasma blasts sprayed toward the darting figures. But the humans were constantly on the move, vanishing as fast as they appeared, masked by the restless, shifting landscape. Crone's jaw clenched. Every instinct told him to fight, to hold the line, but it was no use. The ground betrayed them, rocks they used for cover crumbling without warning, collapsing onto them and cutting off escape. "These humans," Kaysen growled, "they're not just defending their world. They've turned it into a weapon." Vec turned to him, his expression a mix of frustration and something else, an edge of fear. "Prepare the last of the forces to fall back. This planet, it's nothing short of a death trap." Kaysen gave a grim nod, turning to gather the troops. But as he stepped forward, the ground quivered ominously beneath him, like a colossal creature stirring awake. Time was slipping through his fingers. Above, the sky dimmed as dark clouds swirled with unnatural speed, heavy with an impending storm. Thunder rumbled, and soon, fat droplets of rain crashed down, drenching the ground and transforming it into a treacherous mess of mud. The humans had expected even this. They fought in harmony with Earth, exploiting every shift in weather and terrain to their advantage. One by one, Luther soldiers fell, not because they lacked skill or bravery, but because Earth itself had become a ruthless adversary, weaponized by human resilience. Amid the chaos, Crone spotted a lone human soldier. Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat, Crone understood with chilling clarity. The humans weren't merely fighting for survival, they intended to win. The command to retreat came too late. As the dropships lifted off, the Luther forces scattered in disarray, overwhelmed by Earth's fury and the relentless human resistance. Kaysen and the few survivors were soon left isolated, cut off from their escape route and stranded in hostile terrain. "Sergeant, we've lost communication with the fleet," Marash muttered, his voice a whisper of fear as they crouched behind the crumbling stones of an ancient wall. Rain lashed down, muffling the sounds of advancing human forces. "Keep it together," Kaysen barked, though even he knew their chances were slipping away with each second. The violent storm and distant echoes of gunfire painted a bleak picture. Kaysen ducked lower, assessing their grim situation. Every instinct screamed for retreat, but escape was impossible. The dropships were gone, the fleet unreachable, and Earth itself was turning into a deadly labyrinth. "We fight our way out. Head north," Kaysen growled, voice ragged but resolute. His gaze fell on the remnants of his squad, for soldiers who were battered and haunted by the day's brutality. Marash hesitated, glancing north. "Into the mountains? That's a death sentence, Sergeant." Crone struck the ground in frustration. "It's either we die here or give it our all and push through. Decide." A low rumble reverberated through the forest. Trees swayed, as if something immense lay beneath, agitating the earth itself. Crone felt the pulsing tremors under his boots, a beat almost alive, as if the planet had its own vengeful rhythm. Before anyone could react, a searing burst of plasma lit up the fog. In an instant, a plasma bolt struck one of Crone's men, dropping him to the ground. "Incoming!" Crone shouted, spinning around and firing into the thick mist. Crone's team returned fire, but the humans had already melted back into the forest, blending into the thick vegetation between bursts of plasma. "Fall back to the rocks," Crone commanded, and the remaining Luther soldiers tore through the slick terrain, dodging plasma shots that cut through the air around them. Each step seemed to drag them down, as if the ground itself were conspiring to hold them in place. Crone's mind raced. How had the humans turned the environment into their ally? It defied every battle tactic he knew. This world wasn't just a backdrop, it was actively aiding them. Reaching a cluster of boulders, they dove behind the rocks just as another wave of fire shredded through the trees. The humans were closing in, too close for comfort. "They've got us boxed in," one soldier shouted, panic in his voice. "Hold your ground," Crone ordered, his gaze darting across the area. Another tremor rolled through the earth, this one deeper. He could feel it in his bones, a sensation as if the planet itself was shifting beneath them. The humans weren't alone in this fight. The land was answering their call. Then he saw them, human figures moving ghost-like through the mist, advancing steadily. There was no hesitation, no fear in their steps. They moved as if they were a part of the terrain, knowing every twist and turn as intimately as their own skin. Kaysen gritted his teeth. "Fire! Keep them back!" The Luther soldiers unleashed a volley, their plasma rifles blazing through the rain-soaked air, but the humans slipped between the trees with practiced ease, blending with the landscape itself. itself. Another tremor rippled through the ground, and Krone's heart lurched as the earth cracked open, swallowing 2 of his soldiers in a heartbeat. It was as if the planet had become their enemy's greatest weapon. Kaysen fired into the mist, frustration mounting. They're using the very ground against us. We're running out of options. We need to retreat. Sergeant, Morris shouted, ducking as plasma shots shattered the rock beside him. We're not finished yet. Kaysen snapped back, his mind scrambling for a solution, something, anything, that could shift the odds. But nothing in his experience prepared him for an opponent who could weaponize the ground itself. How could he possibly counter that? Then, another figure emerged from the mist, a human soldier. Krone aimed and fired, the burst cutting him down. Just when he thought they were at the end of their line, a commanding voice rang out, slicing through the chaos. Hold your fire! Instantly, the human forces stopped, fading back into the mist as if under strict orders. Kaysen looked around, barely believing his eyes. He turned toward the source of the voice, scanning the shadows until a lone figure stepped forward, a weathered human in a worn uniform, face lined with hard-earned experience. The man raised his hand, signaling the others to cease. Sergeant Kaysen, the man said, his voice steady and unervingly calm. This isn't a battle you're going to win. Krone's grip tightened on his weapon. Who are you? The human gave a faint smile. Just someone who knows this world a lot better than you do.